Behind the excitement of his wrestling career, Randy Savage's life was a mix of highs and lows, filled with moments of both victory and sorrow. The Macho Man was known for his energy and charm, but few knew the struggles he faced. As we look back on his incredible journey, we uncover a story of great success and painful loss. Discover the hidden life of a legend whose rise to fame ended with a surprising and heartbreaking twist. Savage's tragic death and injuries. Randy Savage, the iconic wrestler known to fans as Macho Man, was more than just a wrestling superstar. He was a force of nature, a whirlwind of energy, and a charismatic presence that extended far beyond the wrestling ring. His signature growl, flamboyant robes, and larger-than-life persona made him a household name, not just among wrestling fans but across the entire pop culture spectrum. However, his tale takes a heartbreaking turn, adding depth and complexity to the enduring legacy of the Macho Man. May 20th, 2011 will forever be etched in the memories of wrestling fans worldwide as the day the sport lost a true icon. The sudden and heartbreaking passing of Randy Savage sent shockwaves through the wrestling universe, leaving a trail of devastation and disbelief in its wake. The Macho Man met his demise in a tragic car accident in Pinellas County, Florida. Behind the wheel of his Jeep Wrangler, Savage lost control, crossing the median and crashing into a tree with devastating force. While the impact was severe, it was not the sole culprit behind his death. A more complex and poignant truth emerged, revealing a man who had been waging a secret war within his own body. As the details of that fateful day came to light, it became clear that Savage's death was not just a result of a tragic accident, but also a consequence of his own internal struggles. The wrestling icon, known for his unbridled energy and charisma, had been battling health issues in private, hiding his vulnerabilities from the world. The collision was merely the final chapter in a story of a man fighting to overcome his own mortality. The wrestling world mourned the loss of a legend, but also acknowledged the silent battle he had been fighting, adding a new layer of depth to the myth of the Macho Man. Savage's life was tragically cut short at the age of 58. The official cause of death was a heart attack triggered by atherosclerosis, a condition characterized by the buildup of fatty deposits in the arteries, which restricts blood flow. Further complicating matters, the medical examiner's report revealed that Savage had an enlarged heart, which had been under immense strain. In the moments leading up to the fatal incident, Savage had expressed feelings of lightheadedness and impending unconsciousness to his wife Lynn, who was accompanying him in the car. Despite his distress, the ever-unyielding Macho Man refused to relinquish control of the wheel, a decision that ultimately proved fatal. Though Lynn emerged from the crash with only minor injuries, the world was forever changed by the loss of Savage, a true original, whose vibrant spirit and unbridled energy had captivated audiences worldwide. His passing served as a touching reminder that even the most seemingly invincible figures are not immune to mortality. In his final years, Randy Savage had become a far cry from the flamboyant, over-the-top persona that had made him famous. He had retreated from the spotlight, choosing a more reclusive lifestyle away from the wrestling community that had once been his home. Behind the fence of his Florida property, Savage lived a life of solitude, shunning the company of most people and focusing on simple, everyday tasks that brought him peace. Those close to him noticed a change. Savage seemed eerily certain that his life would be cut short, often expressing his wish for a small, private funeral. His brother, Lanny Poffo, noted that Randy was getting closure for everything in those final years, as if he knew his time was limited. Despite this sense of foreboding, there was a calmness about Savage in his later years, a sense that he had come to terms with his past and was ready for whatever came next. Savage lived an intensely physical life, and he suffered his share of nasty injuries over the years. His journey through sports and entertainment was marked by a relentless commitment to pushing his body to the limits, often paying the price with a series of injuries that would have sidelined most. Yet for him, these physical setbacks were just part of the game. His first notable injury occurred long before he ever stepped into the wrestling ring. In his early days as a professional baseball player, he sustained a significant injury that would alter the course of his life. While playing in the minor leagues, Savage was involved in a collision at home plate that resulted in a serious injury to his right shoulder. This injury was devastating for a young athlete whose future in baseball seemed bright. But Savage's response to this setback was nothing short of remarkable. Rather than giving up on his dreams of a professional sports career, he taught himself to throw with his left arm. As his baseball career waned, Savage transitioned into the world of professional wrestling, where his reputation for physicality only grew. Wrestling, however, brought its own set of challenges, including a grueling schedule and the constant risk of injury. One notable injury during his wrestling career occurred in 1992 when Savage suffered a knee injury. But the knee injury was far from the last or the worst of Savage's physical trials. In 1995, reports surfaced that he had torn his tricep, a serious injury that would have sidelined many athletes. Savage, however, was not one to back down. He made the controversial decision to forgo surgery, a choice that undoubtedly worsened the injury over time. Instead of resting and healing, Savage continued to wrestle, his performance is a testament to his almost superhuman tolerance for pain. In 1998, during his third reign as WCW World Heavyweight Champion, Savage faced another major injury that tested his resilience. This time, it was his anterior cruciate ligament ACL that tore, a debilitating injury that would have ended the careers of many wrestlers. Yet, true to form, Savage pushed through the pain. He continued to wrestle, his knee heavily bandaged and his movements restricted. However, one of the most severe injuries of Savage's career came not from wrestling, but from a brief foray into acting. In 2002, he was cast as the fearsome wrestler Bonesaw McGraw in Sam Raimi's blockbuster film Spider-Man. The role required Savage to perform a series of physically demanding stunts, including a particularly brutal sequence where his character takes a nasty bump on his head. True to form, Savage refused to use a stuntman, insisting on doing the scene himself. The result of that fateful stunt was a neck injury so severe that it left Savage in need of extensive physical therapy. According to his brother Lanny Poffo, the injury was so debilitating that Savage could no longer turn his neck. Instead, he had to turn his entire torso to look at someone, a stark contrast to the agile and powerful wrestler fans had known for decades. The injury marked a significant turning point in Savage's life, as it not only affected his physical abilities, but also forced him to reckon with the toll that years of physical punishment had taken on his body. The wrestling champion. In 1973, Randy stepped into the wrestling ring, beginning a journey that would eventually make him one of the most iconic figures in the sport. He initially wrestled in his father's International Championship Wrestling (ICW) promotion, where he developed his craft and experimented with his in-ring persona. But it was in the early 1980s that Randy, with his extraordinary presence, truly started to evolve into the Macho Man. The Macho Man character was not just a gimmick, rather it was an embodiment of Randy's real-life personality, a mix of intense energy, unpredictable behavior, and a flair for the dramatic. The colorful robes, oversized sunglasses, and the iconic "Ooh yeah" catchphrase were all elements that made Randy a standout performer. But it wasn't just the look, it was his in-ring work that set him apart. He was an exceptional athlete with a style that blended technical wrestling with high-flying maneuvers, making him a versatile and exciting competitor. By 1985, Randy was on the radar of Vince McMahon, the head of World Wrestling Federation, WWF, now known as WWE. Randy made his WWF debut in June 1985, and it was immediately clear that he was destined for stardom. With the WWF's roster brimming with talent at the time, Randy's charisma was impossible to ignore. He quickly ascended the ranks and captured the WWF Intercontinental Championship on February 8, 1986, by defeating Tito Santana. The victory wasn't just another title win, it was clearly a statement. His reign as the Intercontinental Champion lasted for 414 days, one of the longest in the title's history. During this time, his matches became must-see events, particularly because of his intense rivalries. However, one of the most iconic rivalries of Randy's career, and arguably in professional wrestling history, was with Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. Their feud culminated in a match at WrestleMania 3 on March 29, 1987, which has since been hailed as one of the greatest wrestling matches of all time. The build-up to the match was intense, with Randy infamously crushing Steamboat's larynx with a ring bell, an act that heightened the animosity between the two. The match itself was a masterclass in storytelling and athleticism. For nearly 15 minutes, Randy and Steamboat exchanged holds, counters, and near falls in a bout that had the Pontiac Silverdome crowd on the edge of their seats. Ultimately, Steamboat emerged victorious, capturing the Intercontinental Championship, but the match cemented Randy Savage's status as a top-tier performer. Even in defeat, he had stolen the show, a highlight of his ability to elevate any match he was in. If WrestleMania 3 showcased Randy's wrestling ability, WrestleMania WrestleMania 4 was the event that solidified his place at the top of the wrestling world. On March 27, 1988, Randy won the WWF World Heavyweight Championship for the first time by triumphing in a one-night 14-man tournament. His journey to the top saw him defeating the likes of Butch Reed, Greg Valentine, and the One Man Gang before facing the Million Dollar Man Ted DiBiase in the finals. But Randy didn't go into battle alone. Accompanying him was his longtime manager and love interest, Miss Elizabeth, a partnership that added another layer to his character. Elizabeth's presence at ringside was a contrast to Randy's intense and often volatile personality, creating a dynamic that fans couldn't get enough of. With Miss Elizabeth in his corner and Hulk Hogan lending support, Savage defeated DiBiase to capture the WWF Championship, marking the beginning of the Macho Madness era. Randy Savage's WWF Championship reign was defined by his alliance and eventual rivalry with Hulk Hogan. Known as the Mega Powers, Hogan and Savage were the two biggest stars in wrestling, and their partnership was a dream team that fans eagerly embraced. However, as with all good things, the alliance was not to last. The seeds of dissension were sown as Savage grew increasingly jealous of Hogan's close relationship with Miss Elizabeth. The tension between the two boiled over in an explosive confrontation on February 3, 1989, leading to one of the most anticipated main events in WrestleMania history, WrestleMania 5. On April 2, 1989, in front of a packed Trump Plaza in Atlantic City, New Jersey, Savage defended his WWF Championship against Hulk Hogan. The match was the culmination of a year-long storyline, with emotions running high and the stakes even higher. Despite Savage's best efforts, Hogan emerged victorious, ending Savage's 371-day reign as champion. But the loss did little to diminish Savage's status. In fact, it solidified his role as one of the greatest heels in wrestling history. However, the Macho Man wouldn't stay down for long. In 1991, Savage found himself embroiled in another high-profile feud, this time with the Ultimate Warrior. Their rivalry reached its climax at WrestleMania 7 in a retirement match, where the loser would be forced to leave the WWF. The stakes were incredibly high, and the match was nothing short of epic. In a dramatic and emotional bout, the Ultimate Warrior defeated Savage, seemingly ending Savage's career. However, what happened after the match was just as memorable. Miss Elizabeth, who had not been seen with Savage for some time, rushed to the ring in his aid, in a tearful reunion. The moment was a rare display of vulnerability from the Macho Man, and remains one of the most touching scenes in wrestling history. But as with most wrestling retirements, it didn't last. Savage returned to the ring later that year, and won the WWF Championship for the second time by defeating Ric Flair at WrestleMania 8 in 1992. This victory was another feather in Savage's cap, proving that he was still a top draw in the industry. Early life and baseball career. Born Randy Mario Poffo on November 15, 1952, in Columbus, Ohio, he was the eldest son of Judith and Angelo Poffo. His parents' diverse backgrounds, his father was Italian-American and his mother Jewish-American, would later influence his unique personality. Raised Catholic, Randy's early life was shaped by his family's cultural heritage, laying the groundwork for the charismatic figure he would become. Growing up in a household where athletic prowess was the norm, Randy's path to greatness seemed almost inevitable. His father was a professional wrestler himself, a tough-as-nails competitor who once held the world sit-up record. With such a legacy to live up to, Randy and his brother Lanny, who later became known as the Genius in wrestling, were surrounded by the grit and determination that defined their father's career. But the Poffo household wasn't just about muscle and might. It was also a place where discipline and hard work were paramount. As a child, Randy was no stranger to the disciplined life his father led. Whether it was in academics or athletics, the Poffo boys were expected to excel. Angelo's influence extended beyond the wrestling ring, instilling in his sons a sense of purpose and the importance of physical fitness. Young Randy took to sports with natural talent, but it wasn't wrestling that first caught his eye. It was the crack of the bat and the roar of the crowd on the baseball diamond. Randy's love for baseball was apparent from an early age. By the time he was a teenager, he was already a standout player in his local leagues. The raw power and precision he exhibited on the field made him a significant player. While other kids might have been dreaming of becoming firemen or astronauts, Randy had his sights set on the major leagues. His dedication to the sport was unwavering, spending countless hours honing his skills, whether it was perfecting his swing or studying the strategies of the game. After high school, Randy's baseball dreams took him to Downers Grove North High School in Illinois, where his talent on the field didn't go unnoticed. His potential was evident, and soon enough, scouts from the big leagues came calling. In 1971, at just 18 years old, Randy was signed by the St. Louis Cardinals as an outfielder. This was the moment he had been working towards, a chance to prove himself on one of the biggest stages in sports. But as anyone who has ever chased a dream knows, the road to success is rarely smooth. Randy's time in the minor leagues was a test of endurance and character. He started with the Cardinals minor league system, playing for teams like the Gulf Coast League Cardinals and the Orangeburg Cardinals. While his raw talent was undeniable, the minor leagues were a different beast altogether. It was a world where only the toughest survived. A grueling schedule of games, constant travel, and the pressure to perform every single day. Despite these challenges, Randy never lost his love for the game. His days were filled with the routine of batting practice, field drills, and long bus rides between small-town stadiums. But there was something else brewing beneath the surface, something that would eventually lead Randy down a different path. Even as he pursued his baseball career with everything he had, the world of professional wrestling was always there, lurking in the background. However, baseball is a sport that demands not only skill, but also physical resilience. And for Randy, it was a shoulder injury that would change the course of his life. In the early 1970s, while playing in the minor leagues, Randy suffered an injury to his throwing shoulder. It was a devastating blow for a young athlete whose entire life revolved around the game. The injury hampered his ability to throw with the same power and accuracy that had once made him a standout player. While he was naturally right-handed, the shoulder injury sustained in a collision threatened to derail his playing career. However, in true Savage fashion, he refused to let this setback define him. Instead, he taught himself to throw left-handed, a feat that not only demonstrated his incredible athleticism, but also his unyielding determination. For many, such an injury might have marked the end of their athletic aspirations, but not for Randy. Instead, it became a turning point, one that would ultimately lead him to his true calling. While he continued to play baseball, now with a weaker arm, he began to explore other avenues. His father's wrestling career had always been a part of his life, and with the injury limiting his baseball potential, Randy started to consider a future in the squared circle. As an outfielder, Randy played for both the St. Louis Cardinals and the Cincinnati Reds organizations. He spent 4 seasons in the minor leagues, where he faced the highs and lows that come with chasing a dream. There were moments of triumph, showcasing his ability to deliver under pressure, but there were also moments of frustration. The long bus rides between games, the uncertainty of a future in professional sports, and the physical toll of playing at such a high level. Savage played his final season for the Tampa Tarpons, a team that marked the end of his baseball journey. His time on the field was marked by flashes of brilliance, moments when it seemed that he might make the leap to the major leagues. However, as the season came to a close, it became clear that his future lay not in baseball, but in another arena altogether. By 1974, Randy had fully transitioned from baseball to wrestling. The shoulder injury that had once seemed like a curse now appeared to be a blessing in disguise. Randy's baseball career may not have taken him to the major leagues, but it had given him the foundation he needed to excel in the world of professional wrestling. The agility, the strength, and the mental toughness he had developed on the baseball field all served him well in the ring. But perhaps more importantly, Randy's time in baseball had taught him the value of perseverance. He had faced setbacks and disappointments, but he had never given up. That same determination drove him to the top of the wrestling world, where he became one of the most beloved and iconic figures in the history of the sport. Later career and personal life. Randy Savage, the man with the signature raspy voice and crazy showmanship, was more than just a professional wrestler. He was an enormous presence whose influence extended far beyond the squared circle, touching everything from film to music and even the world of video games. But beneath the macho bravado was a man with a complex personal life and a diverse career that kept fans intrigued long after his wrestling days were over. One of the most defining aspects of Randy's life was his relationship with Miss Elizabeth, born Elizabeth Ann Hewlett. Their on-screen chemistry was undeniable, and their off-screen relationship was just as intense. The two met in the mid-1980s, and Elizabeth quickly became an integral part of his wrestling character. She was introduced to the world as his manager in 1985, and their partnership would become one of the most iconic in wrestling history. Elizabeth was the perfect blend of poise and loveliness, a true embodiment of grace and beauty, often seen as the calm to Randy's storm. Their relationship played out in front of millions of fans, culminating in a storyline wedding at the 1991 SummerSlam, dubbed the match made in heaven. But like many fairy tales, the reality behind the scenes was far from perfect. Randy was known for his intense, sometimes overbearing protectiveness of Elizabeth. Reports from colleagues and insiders suggested that his jealousy was not just an act, It was a real-life issue that affected their relationship. Despite the challenges, the two were married in December 1984, long before their on-screen wedding. However, the marriage was short-lived, and they separated in 1992, with their divorce finalized the following year. The dissolution of their marriage marked the end of an era in wrestling, but Randy's personal life continued to be a roller coaster. In 2010, Randy found love again with Barbara Lynn Payne, whom he had been dating for several years. The two were married in a quiet ceremony on May 10, 2010, and it seemed like Randy had finally found peace in his personal life. While Randy will always be remembered as one of the greatest professional wrestlers of all time, his career was marked by a series of transformations that showcased his versatility and creativity. After his time in the World Wrestling Federation, WWF, and World Championship Wrestling, WCW, Savage began to explore new avenues in entertainment, leaving an indelible mark on each one. One of his most memorable ventures outside of wrestling was his endorsement work, most notably with Slim Jim. The snap into a Slim Jim, oh yeah, catchphrase became synonymous with Savage, and the commercials featuring him were wildly popular throughout the 1990s. With his trademark sunglasses and bandanas, Randy was the perfect pitchman for the spicy meat snack. The Slim Jim ads became a cultural phenomenon, and they helped cement Savage's place in pop culture history. His partnership with Slim Jim was so successful that it reportedly generated millions of dollars in revenue for the company. Randy's charisma and unique look also made him a natural fit for Hollywood, and he took on a variety of roles that allowed him to showcase his acting chops. His most famous role came in the 2002 blockbuster film Spider-Man, directed by Sam Raimi. In the film, Randy played the character Bonesaw McGraw, a professional wrestler who faces off against Peter Parker in an early scene. The role was a perfect fit for Randy, as it allowed him to play up his wrestling character in a superhero film. The scene was a hit with audiences, and it remains one of the most memorable moments in the movie. But Spider-Man was far from his only foray into acting. He appeared in a number of television shows and movies throughout his career, often playing characters that were a natural extension of his wrestling character. In 1996, he voiced an episode of Walker, Texas Ranger, where he played the character of a professional wrestler named Rattlesnake. He also made guest appearances on popular TV shows like Baywatch and Mad About You, where he once again brought his personality to the screen. Randy's voice was one of his most distinctive features, and it was put to good use in a number of animated projects. He voiced the character of the Thug in the 1996 animated film Space Ghost Coast to Coast, and he also provided the voice for the character of Gorilla in the 1999 animated series King of the Hill. His deep, gravelly voice was instantly recognizable, and it added a unique flair to the characters he portrayed. However, in 2003, Randy took a surprising turn by releasing a rap album titled Be a Man. The album was a bold move for the Macho Man, as it marked a significant departure from wrestling. The title track, Be a Man, was a diss track aimed at Hulk Hogan, with whom Randy had a long-standing rivalry both in and out of the ring. The album featured Randy rapping about his wrestling career, his personal life, and his thoughts on the industry, all delivered in his signature gravelly voice. While the album received mixed reviews, it became something of a cult classic among wrestling fans. The album showcased Randy's willingness to take risks and try new things, even if it meant stepping outside of his comfort zone. Tracks like My Perfect Friend, a tribute to the late wrestler Kurt Hennig, Mr. Perfect, revealed a more introspective side of Randy, showing that there was more to him than just the tough personality he portrayed in the ring. As one of the most popular wrestlers of his era, Randy's likeness was featured in numerous video games over the years. His first appearance came in the 1989 game WWF WrestleMania, which was released for the Nintendo Entertainment System, NES. The game was a huge success, and it helped pave the way for future wrestling games that would feature Randy as a playable character. Throughout the 1990s and 2000s, he appeared in a number of wrestling video games, including WWF Royal Rumble, WWF Raw, WWF WrestleMania, the arcade game, and WCW NWO Revenge. His character was always a fan favorite, thanks in large part to his distinctive look and moveset. His signature flying elbow drop was faithfully recreated in many of these games, allowing players to relive some of his most iconic moments in the ring. In 2011, he appeared as a downloadable character in WWE All-Stars, a game that featured exaggerated versions of classic and modern wrestlers. The game was well received by fans, and it provided a fitting tribute to his legacy in the world of professional wrestling. Click on the next card for more videos.